Well, good evening, everyone. Been a nice little crowd tonight and appreciate everyone showing up. And with that being said, I'll call the order the Monday, April 15th, 2024, regular Prairie City Council meeting. Roll call.
Rick Hall,
Here.
Rick Clayton,
Here.
Chris Black, here, Tony Cunningham.
Here.
Paula Denmark. Here. Bree Greg, here, Chris Powell.
Here.
Doug Stumble.
Here.
It's our public comment time. Would anyone like to say anything from the public comment view?
I would like to ask that you all reconsider the food truck fees that you all did a couple of months ago, the 400. I've talked to some other people and there's some of them that are gonna back out. There's some of them that think it's just way too high. I personally think it's way too high, double too high. I know that it's gonna affect me in the second Saturday's events and the things that we do downtown, and it might make it a whole lot harder for us to get food trucks. Some of them just like that come in once or twice a year. They're not gonna want to pay that $400 for a year. So I'd just like that y'all to go back to that and reconsider it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Larry, excuse me, Mr. Orridge, I know we've talked about when it goes into effect. Are we still about 30 days or we
No,
pretty
we're
close?
a week away.
One week away.
We had a single use permit though, right?
Yeah, she's not that.
Like someone who's just coming in for.
If they come in one time
One
for
time.
3 days, it's $100,
Yeah.
what we just
Right.
looked up.
So the $400 that we talked about, that's for a year,
for the
right?
whole
Yeah,
year.
these are vendors that, for 12 months.
Right.
They can unlimited number of times, but most vendors we have probably set up 4 to 6 times a year.
Right.
So,
It would be interesting to do a little bit of comparison with our friends in Farmington and like communities to see where they're at and see what happens there. I don't recall, Larry, if we did that. So that might be an interesting benchmark.
My understanding is that Fayetteville is only 150. That's what I've been told. I haven't looked
Yeah.
100%, but somebody that has a food truck said that that's fine.
So I would say that if we're significantly different than the average fare, we should probably relook at it.
Gotcha. And I would assume, Mr. Orridge, if someone was to come in 2 weeks and purchase and then we change it, we could always, I'm sure we wouldn't keep them to 400 if the council was deciding to do different a month later.
if they were, could they?
We really don't have any events coming.
I don't think you can. I mean, we could make it effective.
You could do it.
We could probably make it effective immediately after an emergency clause. But we couldn't, if somebody came in, paid $100 and then lowered it.
We've talked to quite a few vendors
We
as
could.
well, who have complained at the office. And even the $100 for 3 days, a lot of them are opposed to $100 for 3 days simply because $100 is pretty close to what their profits are. You know, it's one day's profits that they result.
Mr. Parker, is it acceptable to possibly, if the council chose to delay the implementation? I know that you said it's probably next week. Is that a procedural thing that the council can do, is actually delay?
No, because it's been passed
Yeah.
and posted and.
Got it.
The
Clock is
60
running.
60 days is what's running and ends 26th of April.
All right, thank you.
Any other public comment? Before we move on to the approval of minutes, I just want to make a note that under our new business, item D, a resolution regarding social media accounts, that'll be held off to next month. Me and our city attorney, Mr. Parker, amongst the whole team, is still trying to make some decisions on what we will bring before y'all. So that will not be discussed tonight. With that, we'll move to the approval of minutes of the March 25th. We'll move. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And to the treasurer's report, it was sent out by Mrs. Kelly. Do you have any questions or comment? Hearing none, we'll move it to audit, and we'll start in our unfinished business, which is our discussion on street parking, or, excuse me, parking in the street or grass and subdivisions, which I really think it should just be, it's a discussion on whether or not what we should do about allowing people to park on grass or their private property. And so I sent y'all some updates on just what y'all comments was last month, hoping that we can kind of shrink it down. And the best that we can come up with as an admin team is that we still, like, even though we kind of opened up the whole gamut last month, like, in the end, we still have one question to answer, which is, do we want to encroach on people's private property to say if they, or to what extent, meaning how many should we allow them to park on actual grass? And so, and then to slender it down, because I know last week we talked about, well, what about boats and what about trailers? Like, in this case, we're just talking vehicles. And that's not saying we can go bigger than that, but the original question was, I have a neighbor that has multiple vehicles parked in their backyard, side yards, and it destroys my property values. Do we as a city council restrict the neighbor who basically has what some could say is a used car lot as a front and side yard?
Do we have anything now in place?
No, ma'am.
The closest, correct me if I'm wrong, if there are hobby cars that are not moved in a certain amount of time, there are ordinances for that. So these are functional
That's right.
vehicles that are being
Yes,
used.
sir. And we really have started hitting it pretty hard for the non-operational, because we do, when I drove the city and looked around what we had, there is a lot of them out there. So we've been sending out certified letters and moving on to stuff we can control. Ms. Auld is correct in the idea that you can have one non-operational vehicle if you're tinkering with it, meaning if you're working with it and then you come in for a $25 permit, that permit gives you 1 year from the day that you filed for that permit. So if you filed it today, April 15th, you have the April 15th next year to have that vehicle up and running, and you just have to be working on it throughout that yearly process. And so we're really talking about, in many cases, workable vehicles in which you're just using, you need extra parking. So instead of parking on a street, you got 3 vehicles parked alongside your house. And as far as the original question or comment, like, we can't deny the fact that it does, if you're the neighbor and you're trying to sell your property, or you're the one that's grooming your property, then obviously those property values are completely different with a home that has multiple vehicles parked around and the home that has a manicured garden and 2 vehicles in the driveway. It's not an easy decision, but that's the one that's before you guys.
Yeah, and Mayor, I appreciate the recap that you sent out too, and I'm, starting with my opinion of, on a go forward for new subdivisions, being very clear and conspicuous on requirements there. I do think it would be extremely difficult. There's a lot of houses built, Larry, probably in the 50s or 60s that don't have paved driveways, and it gets really, really nuanced when you start to retroactively try to enact those. So I like the idea of starting with something going forward at a minimum.
I've been reading Fort Smith's ordinance, and I think it's very interesting. They have a percentage of what cars can cover in a yard, what's unlawful according to their code. And just, they even go so far as to say, screen from public view by permanent opaque screen, like with cars, and they're allowing like 6 cars, which is quite a lot. They won't let you park in the rear of the yard, but I think it's worth for everyone to read it and look at it. I think it's very interesting. And one of the ones I kind of like is very specific. I'll send it to Mayor. Maybe.
My only concern is, I personally don't like them parking in the yard. It drives me nuts. I personally don't like them parking in the street either.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not parking in the yard, they're parking in the street. So there's like
It's probably correct.
there's a two-way thing there, if they're parking in the street and the other guy's parking in the street, you can't get emergency vehicles through there.
I'm not saying it's easy for us to
It's not an
control
easy
that,
decision to make.
but
But I don't know how we can put in the ordinance, if we do pass something where like not only vehicles, but like I know we're talking about vehicles specifically, but you like utility trailers, stuff like that, or they're parked in the middle of the yard and, weeds grow up around them and, I think all that needs to be implemented in some kind of, not saying under the same thing, but under the same umbrella, like, just in the yard in general, what can be in the yard and what can't be in the yard.
It's kind of complicated, but the weeds we can deal with on
Yes.
another. thing.
Right.
But yeah, the trailer will cause the weeds to grow. up.
Right.
Mr. Parker, if a subdivision has covenants and we were to enact something like that, which supersedes?
The ordinance would take precedence. If it's within the city limits, the ordinance is gonna take precedence, but, so for instance, if you had a subdivision that said you can park 4 cars in the grass,
Right.
and we pass something that said you can park 3 in the grass, that's gonna supersede the covenants.
And the vice versa, if the subdivision says you can't park any in the grass and we say you can park 3, then we're gonna supersede the covenants of the subdivision. No.
We can't enforce it, but the neighbor can. Covenants are a personal contract between individuals. They may not realize
Now the
it
problem-
when they bought that house.
And the problem with covenants is how they're written. And so many of them are written that 51% of the legal owners have to be part of that lawsuit. So trying to get any subdivision to get 51% of the owners to sign off on a petition to go after them civilly would be very difficult. We've seen that in the neighborhood, even Valley View, who calls us on a regular basis to enforce anything and everything. They have trouble enforcing their own covenants because of that.
Means if we don't do something now, like like to Rick's point, going forward, but if we don't deal with it now, we're kind of not really fixing the problem.
That's the way I feel too, because we're getting all these new subdivisions and you feel like that they're gonna be keep things maybe neater. I don't know how to say it. But then you've got other parts of town that don't look as good.
Well, I learned this in the police world, and so understand that I'm only a voting member if y'all go a tie, but otherwise I'm just an opinion. And so in the police world, you have to decide how you want your society to go, right? So if I push on crime, in fact, we had a saying that says you can't stop all crime, but I can push it to the town next to me, right? And so, but if you're not willing to push, then you become the town that allows crime. And so I'm gonna use that analogy to say that the manicured yard and the yard with non-vehicles in there, we do make a decision on the direction of our city. And eventually we either become a city without rules and regulations, meaning that multiple people can have multiple cars in their yard and they can tear up their, and the one who wants their house manicured and nice and property values, they the ones that move rather than the ones with the non-vehicles. I'm not saying that one's greater than the other, whatever. This is just individual from individual. But it's our job as a council to decide the direction of a city, not necessarily worry about which individual should win out on that. What do you want your city to look like 10 years from now? And that's when I think about these discussions, that's what I believe y'all answering. What direction do you want your city to go into over the next 10 years? It's not easy, and I'm not saying to do one or the other. We can, after I'm finished talking, we can table it, and I can continue to just do research and send y'all updates, and we can talk about it again next month. But we have no regulations now, which means if I wanted to put 10 vehicles around my house, I can put 10 vehicles around my house. That's just the reality of where we're at. And that's the complaint.
And I think it becomes interesting if I already have, if I already have 10 vehicles
know.
around my house, is it the city's place to come change something and change that on them?
But I do think it's what it will be, to me, the response will be what Mr. Powell said. I'm just gonna move it to the street.
Right.
Now, the truth about the street is the street becomes cluttered, but it doesn't necessarily tear up property values. Now, what we have to worry about is first responders, but we have codes that at least we can regulate that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so either first responders can get down the street or they can't. And when they can't, then y'all have already empowered us to do something about that.
I would say a consideration could be if we did choose to do something as council, I would recommend that it be with a implementation much further than the 60 days
Yes,
out,
yes,
whatever. This would have to be, in 8 months, in a
Mhm.
year, this is gonna go into place or whatever.
I
that
don't
might be,
disagree.
If we retrospectively, attempt to change that.
Yes, sir.
I agree with Rick on that. I think if we pass an ordinance that we should give them time to be able to move the vehicles that are already occupying the yard. But I think we should do something tonight. I think we need to fix this thing right now, and because I'm tired of talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I still think what I really need, myself and the team, just to hear all y'all stuff, and we'll try to start putting things together, and then
Right.
we'll update. We can bring something before y'all
Right.
next month, but it really comes down to, do you want to isolate it to vehicles? Does, like you said, there's trailers and all that stuff, but if we can at least focus on vehicles, which was the original complaint and the original question, then that opens it up. Y'all talked about Springdale last month, which allowed one in the grass parallel.
Mhm.
So that gives a little bit of liberty to the private property owner. Mr. Stumbaugh said, hey, it's got to be on concrete. They just pull a driveway. And I know it's easy to say, it's more difficult to do, but it does give them a way out, especially if we're going back to Mr. Alton, what you're saying, where we're giving them an 8-month window.
Right.
Say we retroact it to be January 2025, then I have 8 months to figure out how I'm going to afford to pour that driveway, so I can put my 2 vehicles now next to my current driveway. Or I'm going to clean out my garage.
Right.
And put my 2 vehicles in the garage like it was originally set to be,
Yeah, I would like us to double click on those houses. I have a rental that's this criteria, that there is no
I
driveway.
know.
And there's no poor driveway. It was probably built in the 50s or 60s. And since that point in time, they've been parking and sort of parallel in front on the grass. So I think if we did write an ordinance, we would need to be clear and conspicuous of those that don't have driveways, because today it's a requirement to have a paved driveway to build a house. It was not a requirement X number of years ago.
Mr. Parker, do you have an opinion on that, or how we would, for the older part of the subdivision that doesn't have driveways, that never had a driveway, and we go say, well, it's got to be on paved, or you can only have one on grass? Is there a loophole in if your home was if you've never had a driveway at your home? Is that the exception to the rule?
You can always try to put in some exceptions, but you really start opening a can of worms. Why did you
Can do it.
why did you say that and not this?
Do we basically we need to start with agreeing on a number of vehicles? Is that where we need to start? I mean, instead of about a driveway or not?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so the original question was, why do you let people park on the grass? So the original concept was 0, like, should you leave 0 park on the grass? I guess what we're trying to entertain here is really, should it be 0, or is there a responsible number? Meaning, I have 4 kids and it's gonna have an extra vehicle, so, we're gonna allow, the one came from Springdale. Springdale allows 1 vehicle parallel to the driveway. And so in essence, I could park on my side yard in the grass parallel to my driveway. So that means I don't have 3 vehicles in my backyard. It means I can have 1.
That kind of touches back to Sue's comment that, gets them out of the backyard, gets them out of everything, they're not storing them everywhere.
And I would say even in the old parts of towns, almost every single house has an established driveway. It may be gravel, but they have an established driveway. Where you're gonna run into trouble if you're gonna require them paved in one neighborhood, how do you not require them paved in
Yeah,
another?
that's exactly it.
I think it's easier to just maybe leave the paving out.
You should call it a back driveway. Yeah.
From a planning commission perspective, and there's several of them here, this is almost easier to enforce with new builds, because we're already in the mindset that we need wider roads, and that's a requirement for us moving forward. So on-street parking isn't as big of an issue. But I don't think you can say one thing is true for new builds and not true for Sundowner or, Prairie Meadows, because that's where the actual problem is. The
And
problems aren't in the
our
new
streets
builds.
are pretty much the standard. I did a comparison today in Fayetteville, Farmington, just about every new neighborhood that I could find, they're identical to the streets that we're seeing built here. I mean, it's not that our streets are narrow,
Right,
it's just streets aren't meant to park two rows of cars on and still drive on.
but even if we did require to one side street parking, that's easier to do in subdivisions. But basically all that to say is, the problem is with already developed lots, in my opinion. And we already have an issue with them parking on the street, so my concern is if we tell these people, you can't park 2 feet or whatever in your grass, they're moving to the street, and the problem becomes greater for emergency services, which supersedes everything, in my opinion.
Which we can regulate that though, like the mayor said, we can regulate that part of it. Once
If
they
parking
park,
in the street,
yes, once they park.
Well, if they
If
impede
they impede
first
where emergency
responders.
vehicles can't get down, then we can regulate that.
what does that look like? I mean, if there's two parked side by side on the exact same thing, is you ticket both of them? Because who's in the wrong?
They both are.
Guess theoretically, I mean,
That seems like a can of worms to me too. I mean, I don't
I
know.
think Brady alluded to it, but I think it's been talked about many times. On these new subdivisions, it's hard to go back and retroactive the older ones, but the new subdivisions, you could designate one side of the road parking, one side of them. And
That's not what this discussion is, but, that's definitely easier to control.
Require longer driveways in the subdivision.
Yeah, setbacks, further setbacks to the house.
Well, I think in new
Well-
subdivisions, you could also require no parking in the grass and those other components too, not just street side parking.
let me take another month to pull everyone around us, because since we're gonna call about the food court stuff anyway, let me see what they have. Because to go back to my discussion of what you want your city to look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now, if everyone else is regulating and we're not, you know the clientele that you're gonna have. And so let's find out what everyone else is doing, and then maybe that'll help us know, the direction that other people are going, and that'll help indicate what we should. Mhm.
It's like storage buildings, you don't.
About what they classify as a driveway, I mean, as far as egress or.
Yeah, I mean, we have like the trailers, we could do that, just like we do the storage
Yes,
buildings,
sir.
you know, they don't cross, they don't break the front plane of the house.
So Mayor, you're getting
That
your
would be the
homework.
easiest way.
One thing
Stop
would
them
be,
from being in the
be
front yard. They
interesting
can put their
also.
RV in the back.
Yeah, I'm trying to listen to him too, because it's something to do with your utility trailers, right?
Just do those just like a storage building, the portable.
Utilities is like
They don't-
storage.
They don't come in the front yard.
Okay.
That's-
And across the side plane to the house.
Start. Go ahead, Mr. Oak.
So it would be interesting as I look back at Chief Workman over here, contextually, what that does, because respectfully, I don't want the Prairie Grove Police Department to become the parking police. So what does that law, if Farmington has something, what is the lift from a resource to actually enforce that ordinance? Because passing an ordinance we're not willing to enforce is not a.
Well, and that's why truthfully that we've been complaint driven for a long time. I mean, I don't want to put a whole lot on now, but we're trying to be a lot more proactive now. And so once we recognize that we had an issue and now we kind of paying attention to the issue, part of the problem is that I don't have a code enforcement right now because Mrs. Baker retired. So I'm doing code enforcement myself, and our animal control officers working hand in hand with it. The enforcement comes from us at first. And then when it comes down to a fine is when we actually partner with the police department to go out. So, you have contact, you try to walk through it, and then if the person doesn't comply, then we actually start on the enforcement side. And so we'll table this into next month. I got to use Mr. Oates, my homework. And then I'll update y'all throughout the month, and we'll get ready for it next month. Moving to unfinished business B, another continued discussion about the noise ordinance as it pertains to food courts in our downtown area. And I think this one, once again, we may go wide on it, but it really came down to, should this be a permit process and who should be the designated person? I think last month y'all talked a lot about the designated person should be me or someone inside the admin team inside City Hall. I think we have that one figured out, but really comes down to, should it be we don't have a permit, like it says that you would come to us for a permit, we don't have a permit for noise. Like it doesn't exist right now, so we can make one. Mrs. Gregg had, should we move Friday to an 11 PM, Friday, Saturday to 11 PM? If we could answer those two, if y'all would want to do that. Mr. Alt talked about, instead of just thinking about the food courts, to think about the whole central business district as a whole. So it really just comes down to, do you want to do it by permit? And then we can make the permit, bring it before y'all next month. And then y'all would confirm whether or not you want me or someone at City Hall to be the designee on that one. And then if y'all want to change the hours on Friday, Saturday, I think that if we can condense what was a 45-minute conversation into those three questions, we could probably achieve something tonight when it comes to that.
Yeah, and the ordinance today says there is a permitting process,
Mhm,
correct? And
it does.
We don't have one.
We just don't have a permit.
So we have a reconciliation.
Mhm.
We either do away with the permitting process or we come up with a permitting process. And
So how long will the permit last?
What we're gonna discuss tonight, I guess.
It's kind of the biggest thing. I mean, it's pretty easy. I mean, the mayor.
A one-day
is the one that
permit.
issues all the other
Typically,
permits.
it's gonna be for an event.
Mhm.
right, it could be a weekend event.
Could be a church having a revival, you know, in a residential area, it could be something
Kind of
like
like
that.
fireworks,
Could be that,
kind of like I mean, kind of like similar to the fireworks one, where the mayor grants permission if it's outside the board.
something that's very loud and very noisy and I would think would be next to a residential area or something that would affect.
My recommendation would be, just to stay 45 minutes, that we do away with the permitting process. We have a city limits noise ordinance that applies to Monday to Thursday, or Sunday to Thursday, Friday and Saturday. If it's something outside of that ordinance, they would come in and ask for a change. That would be my recommendation.
They would come in and get a permit or do away with the permit?
Do away with the permits, so there's less involved. I mean, it seems overly involved to me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too
That
much
solves
to.
the problem for the.
So we already have,
Noise
we already have
at
noise
10
ordinance.
o'clock on a Friday.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and that's, to Bree's point, we already have a noise ordinance. There is a time that
Mhm.
is in that. I think it's 10 o'clock or whatever that is. So if we did away with the permit, to Bree's point, we still have a noise ordinance that the city can enforce.
Yes, sir.
It would be interesting to know what other cities are doing, but I think I agree, just to do away with the permitting process period. And, you know, enforce the noise
The noise
ordinances as applicable.
Guess that we've never issued a permit if we don't really have a permit then.
Right.
We've never really used it.
Right. So for now, and we can come back later and come up with a process. We could actually vote to, you know, I assume Parker, you know, suspend whatever else the existing permit requirement. And then come back if we determine later that we wanted to have permitting.
Yeah, I mean, you could vote as a policy that the administration not enforce the permitting
Still there, but it's just-
policy. It's still there, not enforce it.
which we're not today.
Which isn't in place, so. You can do that, but, I think, what you might, I guess what my understanding is, there's somebody planning to put a music venue downtown.
And it's very close to
Right now.
residential houses.
That's gonna be in violation of the ordinance.
Well, as long as he shuts down before 10 o'clock, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and if that's not a conflict, then
Well,
what's
you
the
know,
problem?
honestly, if y'all just go in this motion.
Right. To suspend.
He just- he just-
enforcing the ordinance.
Yeah, he would just know that, or any person would know that they're just not in conflict as long as they shut down at 9:59, in essence. And so you're not having a concert to midnight.
I had multiple
Yeah,
family
go ahead.
members trying to call us.
No, it's,
No, it's not.
Yeah, Mayor,
So-
so I'll make a motion to, see if I can craft this right, to, discontinue enforcement of the permitting process,
Okay,
for music or noise.
Would extending the time be a second one? If we wanted to,
so I do have, did you have any, I do have a motion and a second. Do you have any further? Bree,
well,
did you
that's
have
why I
something?
just wanted to ask that before we,
What was the question, Bree? I didn't hear.
if we want to extend the time on a Friday, Saturday, does that need to be part of this, or would that be a secondary?
I think it'd be, I think it'd be, would it be a secondary?
Noise ordinance, so I think it would be a second.
Yeah, it would be secondary.
We get amended.
You need it? Is it time up? Hey, give it to me. Yeah, I gotta do is point it.
That would require changing the ordinance, I think. This is basically just developed to direct us not to do anything else.
So one more clarifying question on that, if we vote to not enforce, if someone's playing music at midnight on a Tuesday, we just voted to not. enforce.
You're violating.
You're voting to not enforce the permitting process, not management of the actual.
Okay, I just want to clear.
And so, Bree, would you like us to look at coming back next month for a change to 11 o'clock on Friday, Saturday? Because we could talk about that now, so we know to bring it in, or do y'all want to wait, just completely wait on that?
I think if you're gonna have a booming central business district with event centers downtown, 10's too early to shut down, just my personal.
Well, if nothing else, we can write the resolution and y'all can go to vote next month. So I'll add that to next month. And then y'all will have a month to think about it and then vote on whether or not it'll go 11 a.m. on, excuse me, 11 p.m. on Friday, Saturday.
That'll be important to change.
Yes, oh, yes. All right, but as of now, I have a motion by Rick Alt and a second by Rick Clayton to end the process of the permit. Well, process. Yes, okay, discontinue enforcement of the permit process for music and noise. So I do have a motion and a second. Is this a roll call? Or is it just all in favor? If I have a motion and excuse me, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, new business. We have a city ordinance to approve the primary plat for Copper Hill subdivision phases 1 and 2. Mr. Ulrich?
Just to go through planning commission, you remind me of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did go through planning commission a week and a half ago, and they did recommend it. Basically, what we're being asked to approve tonight is phase 1 and phase 2. This is the subdivision that borders on Butler as well as Pittman Street. So if you go down South Pittman past Harps, this would be Pittman right here. And then this would be Ozark Street coming around to Butler right here at your summit. If that helps everybody orientate a little bit. So phase 1 is right here in the purple. And phase 2 is right here in the orange. And so most of it on the first phase, which is this corner right here, will be facing Pittman Street. There will be one little section on Butler right here that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots fronting it. That will be part of the first phase, and then this street will attach back to Butler in the first phase. So originally, they talked about a phasing plan that would go over about 6, 7 years, Jesse, if that's my recollection. And one of the questions I had in planning commission, why are we submitting 2 phases? It's a pretty simple answer. You got detention down here that's needed for the first phase. It's actually part of the second phase. The utilities are all coming this direction, or at least the sewer utilities are all coming this direction. So they need to go ahead and do the dirt work for phase one and phase two at the same time. They need to do the drainage for phase one and phase two at the same time. They're actually only planning on finishing phase one in probably around 2025, the beginning of, is that accurate?
Yeah, into 24.
And then they won't start on that until it's at a later date.
How many rooftops in phase one?
Can you answer that question? How many phase one?
75 to 80.
75 to 80 somewhere. I think total there was about 126 between the two phases. Is that right?
Jesse, what kind of houses are these?
What's that?
What kind of houses are these? What are they?
Size wise or?
Yeah, size wise.
I mean, yeah, all, detached single family in this phase. I mean, we build everything from 1,300 to 2,500.
These are all single phase in first phase, right? This is part of a much bigger PUD, and that PUD will have all different types of housing in it. It will have townhouses, it'll have multifamily, it'll have single family. They have submitted design specs for every building that's gonna be in the subdivision to the planning commission for approval. So we've actually seen what the facades are gonna look at. There's a restriction on they have to have masonry area, it's 2-story, at least the second story. So they've got a number of things that they're doing in addition to just the basic package. One of the big questions we did have, and this is a question for council, we talked to the planning commission about it some, but ultimately it falls on the planning commission. They are improving this section of Pittman Street and widening it. There's a small section right here on Butler, and I think what they would prefer to do, because this subdivision continues, you can see where my hand is, and it continues down here. So what they would prefer to do is improve that all in one section instead of coming in when they do phase one and just improving this tiny little section right here. I don't think the city has a big problem with them waiting, do they, Chuck, as far as you are concerned?
No, it's not. There'll be a cash bond or something for it, or?
We can require well, the problem, any kind of bond that we make them put up, we can make them put up a cash bond, but if we made them put up a regular bond, it's for 2 years, probably they're not gonna be on these other phases for about 3 or 4 years, to be honest. So it is a very small section, that's probably 250, 300 feet.
Yeah,
5 lots.
250,
I
yeah.
don't remember what the width on those are, but I'd say that's about 300 feet, somewhere in one section.
It makes sense to do the work all together, I just don't wanna be stuck with the bill later, so I like the bond.
Park, hold the final phase, if they don't do that, it's.
Everything else, this first page, that's what the park included in it, correct? And you can see the parking that is notched out right here on this side. Planning commission has asked them to duplicate that on the back side. They can't build. So there'll actually be 20-some parking spaces, I think we calculated.
We could get to that very
For
nice.
this small little
Like
park.
phase 7, if they don't do all that road, we could approve it.
And,
Make them do that.
they don't know what all the amenities are gonna be, there'll be some. Probably some type of an athletic.
Yeah, the northern part in phase one will be more of an active park with sports type facility, and the southern one will be more smaller kids, playground equipment.
The other one to do, but they're all in one.
So if you have any questions, Jesse, here, anything you want to know?
Is that what that is, Jesse? That phase two, is that green space right there?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that what that is?
Yeah, if you look down through the field, it's a giant tree, and how we managed to land that giant tree right in that park, so.
Okay.
Phase one and phase two both have.
Both have green spaces? Okay. Where's the phase one green space?
For council to know.
It's actually where the phase one sticker is.
You're being asked for approval, phase
stock
one,
of
phase two, and you're also being asked to either require, the improvements of those 5 lots or to, exempt them until future phase.
I just want to clarify, the perimeter roads are being extended or widened, are the interior roads being widened also, like we're talking about how future subdivisions need to
They're
be
meeting the
widened?
current regulations, which is 28-foot back curb on regular streets and 35 feet back curb on collector street. There is one collector, but not in this phase.
About signing one side, parking, no parking.
We did along that collector road.
In some other cities, they do require us to sign one side, no parking. So everyone has the expectation, this side of the road.
But we can require that with this subdivision up front, and I mean, that's a determination that chief of police actually instructed me. So
I would think now.
So we are not gonna make them improve Butler right now.
It's a decision for y'all to make.
What I mentioned, Doug, is it makes sense to not do it in two sections, but I also don't want the city to be stuck with the bill. So if there's some sort of cash bond or something like that for that first section, it would make sense to me.
Mailboxes, are they, maybe this is not even our thing, but are the mailboxes to be individual from the homes, or it's gonna be one central?
That's actually the postal determined that they have gone to all game boxes. They require
Jesse, what is the phase for the rest of the road frontage?
It's near the end. I think we should probably come up with something that it would be nice if it was in a phase that occurred sooner, but I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like 6 phases away, which is probably way too long to wait to do it. So I think we just maybe need to come up with a time frame, before you start phase 3, or do it with phase 3, something like that.
Well, that's what, they were kind of saying this over here, and we determine they're moving forward on each phase. If they're not willing to work with us, then we don't let them move on to phase 3 for the road frontage. So I'm not that.
One of the things that we, the chief, have to look at, if we don't do these street improvements in a timely fashion, is the amount of traffic will come off 160. That's the amount of other streets. It's the first 2 phases, 160.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit by itself.
161, I think. Yeah, 82 and 79.
it. Yeah, why that one little stretch, it doesn't do much good.
It's just a 2 phases. But don't do street improvements on up there, the time to tax it, all that's gonna come out on top of it's gonna improve right now.
To it prior to the final plat of phase 2. When we go and pay phase 2, we do the street improvements above that. But I mean, we're open to whatever works in the city.
So what are we doing, what are we looking for?
Just approve
The
that,
plat.
and then that they tie in
Okay.
Butler improvements with
So
the
that
final
need to be
plat
in the
information.
That need to be an emotion for example.
Or-
And that's what he's on.
You have a front page.
So we're done.
He's willing to do it for phase 2.
Yeah, you can do it as well.
Okay.
So we'll spend the rules, place the ordinance and first reading the title.
Do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
How's that memorialized that is completed in phase 2? Is that something that the planning commission just follows up on, or?
I will with final plat.
Okay.
Any further? Roll call?
Rick Hall.
Yes.
Rick Clayton.
Yeah.
Sue Pluck. Yes. Tony Cunningham.
Yes.
Paula Ditmars.
Yes.
Bree Greg. Yes. Chris Powell.
Yes.
Doug Stumble.
Ordinance to approve the preliminary plat of Copperville phases 1 and 2 subdivision.
Further spend the rules, waive second, third reading, adopt the ordinance.
I do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Rick Hall.
Yes.
Rick Clayton.
Yeah.
Sue Pluck. Yes. Tony Cunningham.
Yes.
Paula Ditmars.
Yes.
Bree Greg.
Yes.
Chris Powell.
Yes.
Doug Stumble.
Yes.
So this one should be easy. B is a resolution to approve. Thank you, sir. Y'all have a great night. Resolution to approve land purchase. This is the actual approval that y'all gave us last month to pay the $72,000 for the parking lot behind Southern Mercantile. I will go to closing tomorrow. We voted on it last month, but we did not have the resolution. They need a resolution to close.
Make a
So
motion to approve the resolution for the purchase of the land. Second.
I do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. A resolution to approval of police policy changes, and I'll turn it over to Chris Workman, Chief Chris Workman, if he would like to explain what he's changing.
So, two changes. Hey, David Rock's not here, so. Two changes in the police policy. PD. Make part of it, I make part of it, just the COVID kind of made a lot of that, so what we've done is we're going back to the PDP investigation twice a year instead of once a year. And here's one to implement it where I live, state minimum standards. Our new cadets in the police academy, there's a norm that they must meet. A mile and a half run, push-ups, sit-ups, and a 71% max bench press of body weight. Mainly for cardiovascular, just to check, see where you're at. All these for first responder, should be a minimum level to obtain this. And it goes for all employees, not just patrol, myself included. I wanted to open that department, and I can take it and pass it. So, yeah, anyone who says, I mean, you have to work for it. So anyway, the plane, first of all, I don't think we can prepare for that. The EMT paramedic fire, that would be like, saying, I can't shoot gun, but you would carry a gun. Me personally, I've got family. If I need, when I'm in an accident, whenever I stay there, who's responding, so move the vehicle, whatever they need to do. I think that's down on workers' comp issues. A lot of departments got away from it because it was holding some back. I think a lot of it's because of injuries, but the emergency responder, there should be a minimum fitness. That's what we're implementing, not just once a year, especially twice. So we put those changes in.
Chief, if there's a temporary lapse where somebody's unable to achieve that, is there a grace period that's given, or is it they fail?
Yes,
What is
yeah.
that?
Even the old policy had, it gives you a 60-day, you have to return, say, when a female student who had a child, she can have 60 days when she's completely back, say, hey, the doctor says you're good 100%, then you got 60 days. I just had shoulder surgery a couple months ago, so it would apply to anyone. So you have a surgery, whatever that is, to get injured, you go through it, released by the doctor, you have 60 days to do it.
And since you said that's a state minimum requirement, Parker, there's no really legal concerns from an employment status or, working or any of that.
And a lot of departments go through office courses, drag a 150-pound dummy, jump over a fence. We've done some of that, and you do got to get injuries, right? It happens. Because you do all that stuff. The reason I chose this is because of the state of Arkansas standard, the Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, that this is the norm, what we'll do. We're just talking the bare minimum.
And it's less than a state, I mean, like, the mile run is a state standard, but there's actually more in the state standard that Chief hasn't thrown in.
So, that's why I was saying it's much needed. I'm sure there'll be some other here to do it. Have to start doing stuff to get that position. And we're doing it twice a year instead of doing it once a year, so. It'll encourage I think all employees to maintain those years. Be active.
And if you have it's only for emergency services, so if you had any administrative officer positions. that would not
Those
be
are
required.
good. Anybody that's full-time security, again, like I said, myself, I'm making the captain do it. We're not out on patrol.
Okay.
But we're still gonna be a part of that. Because occasionally we go to calls as well. So I think if you're gonna be responding to any kind of emergency call, there should be a minimum expectation standard that you should be able to do before you do this. And we got it, for the ones that are we have some guys that can run a mile and a half in 13 minutes. Even better than time for big runners. So if they do that, we got another standard, they can actually wear the physical fitness bottle, which means you didn't just do the minimum, you went above and beyond. So it's kind of encouraging to say, hey, don't just do the bare minimum, do more.
Chief, you're just trying to keep me from being an officer, aren't you?
I'm 46, just had shoulder surgery, and I can do it, so, and I'm not a Navy SEAL, nor have I ever been, so it's something that's very easy to do, you do got to put some effort, time, and work into it.
He is on the honor system, though. He doesn't have anybody witness it.
I got there in time, Chief.
I'm gonna get Larry, I think the mayor should implement this at City Hall as well.
City council members, and any paid employee.
That's how to move on.
Chief, do you you wanna talk about the handguns as well?
It's on the handguns, but we got a lot of old policies that are 20, 30 years old. So currently, we have to qualify every year for whatever, do weapon, backup weapon, rifle, shotgun, that we need to carry. The old policy states any weapon, off duty, they must qualify with it. We're paying firearm instructor is going out. So, I mean, if you're taking a trip to Florida, you want to carry Go 45 or whatever, that's fine, but you're not acting in the official capacity of the police department. I'm taking that out. I don't know why that was ever in there, actually. If it's anything, you know, if they're working U of A or any kind of off-duty assignment, they can carry one of our weapons. They are trained and certified and qualified. So it's just taking out, you know, some of these guys have, you know, 10 guns. So the old policy requires them to bring every gun that they own at their house, a personal gun. If you ever carry this off duty, you must qualify with it. So we're taking that out because there's no need to have this.
Chief, a little bit of maybe a bigger question is, if an officer is off duty and they're carrying a gun that they did not qualify on, do they still have a duty to respond? Should there be a situation with that gun?
No, I mean, obviously, most police officers going to unit throughout the state, wherever it may be. So they're not gonna be acting under the direction under the city of Prairie Grove. Obviously, they're a police officer, they can, you know, say, hey, I'm a police officer, and that, but they don't have jurisdiction unless that agency requests them to have jurisdiction. A police officer can make an arrest essentially anywhere in the United States, if that agency said, hey, we're requesting you to, you know, Little Rock, if we're in training for Little Rock meeting said, hey, we're requesting you to help us, and we have full arrest power. But typically, they don't have that issue. It's more of a civilian self-defense, even though they're a police officer. So liability, I looked at it, as far as that department, I addressed it, like I said, the threat, official capacity with us, we want to use whatever thing we issue. That way we say they can have to ready, they can shoot that firearm. They know how to use it, get the minimum qualification. If they go hunting or they go to Beaver Lake or whatever, they can take whatever they want because they're not interacting on that police department. And with cost ammunition and just the time, that's why we're doing that. We have some of them that bring 6, 7 guns out, be there 2 hours with that one person going through it all.
It was a resolution.
Yes, sir, it was.
I have one question about your there's this, maybe I'm just misreading it. You have like the run, the bench press, push-ups, you have a lot of information, and then you have, like, there's a discrepancy in the numbers. There's, like 0.71 at the top, but then on the bottom is 50%, which number is it? 80%?
That's to get the badge.
Okay,
Yeah, that's repeated twice. So one is the norm minimum, and the second group is to achieve the physical fitness bar. If you're gonna get the physical fitness bar, you have to do more than just one over the bare minimum.
Chief, I'd like it on record too, 60 days is not enough for a postpartum mama to be back. I'm just saying, I do C-sections, 6 weeks apart with a child.
Yeah.
So that's
No,
a
it's-
lot.
It's 60 days after the doctor has released you
Yeah,
to come back to
so
work.
if it takes you 2
That's
years,
better.
that's fine, so, and that's always been the policy, so it's whenever you come in and say, hey, I'm good to go, it's not just something happens, you get that new day, so.
Still have to.
You got 80 days, get it together.
A
Okay, perfect.
C-section and shoulder surgery are both.
All age.
Hey. Move to approve. All right. All right, I do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Reports of committee, sanitation, Sue Pluck.
Everything's going well. The only, issue we have right now is yard waste. Because we're back in that time of the year again, everybody's cutting their grass, cleaning up their leaves, cleaning up flower beds. And we only have one employee that's doing that, and that's still Alan, and he works 20 hours a week. So that doesn't give us very much time to go pick up brush when he was doing 26 to 28 hours a week last year. So, lists are getting long and people are getting impatient.
What is something we need to do to get that?
We would just have to look at finance to see if we can come up with enough money to give it more hours.
Few more hours or something?
Last year we did it and we put a cap, I think, of $8,500, you know, for the remaining of the summer. Once we reach that late July, not late October, right about the time the weeds was falling really good.
Mhm.
And so we reduced it to basically 10 hours a week.
I'd rather some sports teams say volunteer to pick up brush. I don't know if the school would consider volunteering and that going to the trash. Or the volunteer.
But then you have to provide the bid.
I think the coaches side will help. I don't know how they do it. That was-
We're using the trash truck, you think the volume is so high.
That's something we need to look at. It's trying to get us to get more hours. Well, let's go sit down and talk about
I can tell you the answer, we don't have the money for you. So,
Yeah.
it sounds good, but it doesn't exist right now. Now,
I didn't know if there was enough in the sanitation budget to give me more hours.
I don't think the sanitation budget usually washes about clean. He's asking if there's more money, and my short answer is no. And so we usually wash clean, so, we're just gonna have to try to figure it out and use other employees to help us until
And we're
until
trying to
something
augment
changes.
it with some of the other employees that have CDL. We're gonna start asking our, trash drivers to, take one day a week that they can stay over and work for an extra hour, hour and a half. You know, it's part of their incentive, but just give up their incentive time for that day. And, you guys can learn quite a bit with trash drive in an hour and a half, as long as you keep track of which district you're in. That's what we're looking at right now, the supervisor is supposed to visit with the guys, Friday. To see about that, we didn't discuss it today.
Thank you. Street Department, Rick Clayton.
For Chuck.
You can see everything downtown still tore up. It'll be like that for some time. We did advertise for overlay projects on South Neal, South Mock, and South Pittman. We should have those numbers by the end of this month. And, you know, talking with Larry, it may be 3 or 4 months before somebody mobilizes them into those projects. But we think we're going to set aside and do those. And we're also going to overlay urban beats. Because it's deteriorating quite a bit. It's getting an increased amount of dump truck traffic, so only 2 out there that did in the city. So that's one of the projects.
Hey, Chuck, will the overlay go all the way on South Mott to the highway?
It'll only go to Butler.
To Paula's house is where we wanted to go.
It would go to the intersection of Butler, which do all of the water line projects that we tore up. But we anticipate a new sewer force main going in within the next 2 years to handle the capacity issue that we're gonna have with the full build out of this. And it's gonna go right down the edge of Market Street. And it's gonna go to Butler and then turn west. And so I don't wanna invest that kind of money to do that other 3,500 feet or so of South Mock and then turn around and cut it up again for 2 years.
And I would caution everybody, once you get bid prices, that may affect the linear footage that you do on this
That we get to
project.
do.
That is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have the money.
And when will you have the bids? 3
Bid
months?
opening is the 26th of this month.
Okay.
Water and Sewer, Doug Stumble.
Things out of the wastewater expansion are going along real good. We're still waiting on that last mixer. We have met twice in the last 3 weeks about implementation and startup on that new train that we're built. And, I think we've got a pretty good plan put together and, so that we can start producing a pretty good effluent in about 7 to 10 days. Once we get it flowing, we'll get it running. So that's always been a big question since the beginning of this, is how fast we can get it up and operational. And then we'll start with the drawdown of the ovens. It's going really good. They've got a lot of site restoration done, a lot of grass is starting to grow. The guys out there are very happy. It's not muddy anymore. Replaced all the asphalt bed stuff, so starting to look good. We actually had a school tour in last week. They brought 3 or 4 classes from the high school. And Joey really enjoyed that up there. Junior high, yeah, okay. I thought it was high school. What about junior age? Grandson.
Did you get the koozie software?
Yes. Got the ball rolling, and I think I overheard today the implementation a little bit faster than what they thought.
Mid-June.
Was that going to come out of the water fund?
Yes.
Has it already been processed in the?
No.
I was just looking at the sales and tax account, there's a year maintenance. I didn't know if that was the case.
That is, so 22,000. Yep.
Thank
Chuck,
you.
Before we move on, and this may, Mr. Mayor, be more of a comment. I had a constituent bring an idea up, and I promised her that I would bring it up in the council meeting. And what's related to water is, she was suggesting that when citizens sign up for their water to be turned on, that would be an amazing point to share things like, noise ordinance. She was specifically about barking dogs and that, of just capitalizing on that moment when they are turning on their, and maybe she even said even on their first water bill, having some type of enclosure or something printed on it. So I just promised her I would bring that up as that being a great opportunity for new residents moving in to be informed of whatever it is they may need to know. To live in
There is a informational trifold that, and I know we used to hand it out to new customers, and I really don't know if they're still handing it out. I know it's still in the office, I saw it yesterday, or last week. But it has a lot of those FY questions.
I agree. I thought it was a good idea for her, so just I promised her. I
I'm
would
sure
pass
it
that
doesn't
on.
cover everything, but it covers a lot of things.
We started talking about that a few months ago, and honestly, I probably just dropped the ball on it. You get busy and you forget.
It's on the table in the water office when you first come in.
We talked about doing like maybe the top 10 things that we, new people just don't know because we're different than the cutting easement behind the house, the no basketball goals curbside,
When-
those
when
type
the
of
pull
things,
up
yes. Mhm, yeah, wonderful.
Well, to be honest, we need to give that to them first. It's once Janet starts talking about the trash, it drags on.
Well, thank
You
you.
want to go back to sanitation on the 15 levels of trash?
Love to help, update that if you do, and make like a digital version, something really nice that will hand out on the website, that's where you can put on social media, something that's just updated and really easy and pleasing for everyone.
I'll send out a.
Ask questions, you know, would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or for you too, Jeff, what
Yeah.
you're-
Different things, you know, that happen in our city and things that we'd like to point out and bring downtown and, you know, so I can make that.
And we are getting ready to do a yard maintenance spring cleaning type post on Facebook with all the regulations here in the next week, probably. I may get that out even tomorrow.
Yeah, and this constituent specifically said she thinks that the communication is good on social media, but there's a certain number of folks that would not be reached there.
Including myself, that does not use social media.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on.
I can attest for the mayor, we are starting to get a lot of yard mowing complaints already.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that consideration, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. With that, call it, Mr. Rocco.
Court, so for the month of March for 2024, Lance here, our total collections was 43,289. The city's portion was 26,093. Comparative to last year's same month was 48,000 and city portion 31,000.
Thank you, sir. Fire department report.
Fire Department, Mr. Dobbs.
Did everyone get Chief Dobbs's updated email from the month's recordings?
Yeah.
So that's all. All right, Parks and Rec, Chris Paul.
Yeah, we had a Parks and Rec meeting. This month, and we went over there's projects that we've got done, projects that we'd like to see done. There's several out there. The biggest project that I can think of right now is Miss Laura Cross has a project she'd like to do in Mock Park. Is that something you'd feel comfortable saying and talking about, or?
Sure.
Okay, please.
I did have some pictures too.
Oh, you did? Okay. Hi, I know most of you, but for those of you who don't know, I'm Laura Kraus, Murray now. My husband and I moved here in 2015 from California, and we had two little boys. I was pregnant with my second son, when my husband was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. That's him and my oldest son in that picture. Mock Park was their favorite place to go. So he passed away about 3 years ago, right after my second son was born. Sorry, sometimes I can talk about like somebody else's story, and then sometimes I talk about it and my heart starts racing like I can't believe it's not like.
Greg's about 6 years old now.
Greg, he's 6 now. So, I lost my husband to stomach cancer, and I can't imagine ending up in a better community than Prairie Grove. These strangers would put money in my pocket at the grocery store. They did bake sales. Like, this isn't important to the project, but this community, like, they saved us. And so for a couple of years, I've wanted to do something in memory of my husband in Prairie Grove because it was so important to him, so important to us. When my son and I were in California, and this is my new husband, I've married another widow. We lost his fiance in a car accident just a few months ago, so, we both love dead people, and it's weird and it works for us, but. Yeah. No, here, okay. So anyway, we love Prairie Grove, we're grateful for Prairie Grove, we wanna get back to Prairie Grove, and selfishly, I wanted to honor my husband in Prairie Grove because he was cremated, and I would just love for there to be a place that my kids could go. That's their daddy bench, their daddy spot. So we were in California over Christmas. We saw this like beautiful rock garden. I know a lot of people paint rocks and all that. It's like a thing. And my son was like, "Can we paint some of these and put them at Mock Park for daddy?" Since that was our favorite place to go. And then a friend had sent me this telephone in the wind. You can't really read it, but it's like this telephone is here for,
Want me to read it?
sure, if you want to.
This phone is for everyone who has ever lost a loved one. The phone is an outlet for those who have messages they wish to share with their lost friends and loved ones. It's a phone for memories and saying goodbyes that were left unspoken.
And then there's obviously a picture, and that's an honoring somebody, but I would like to take that off. And my husband has agreed that we could pay for this. I know that the bench would have to be like park grade, but they're the bench or picnic table on the other side of Mont Park, but there's no benches by the playgrounds, like for when you're watching the little kids. And we have huge boulders in our yard, and so what I am proposing is that from the back of the house, there are those two trees that lead into the park, to do some kind of landscaping barrier and do 2 flower beds on each side full of like positive painted rocks and then lined with not boulders that big, I'm not good at Photoshop, but some boulders on the edges to make a walkway through the trees, and then on the other side of it, do a bench. And how I would like to balance this, if you guys would accept it, is, we are willing to pay for all of it. If on the phone, on the tree, there's no plaque, no picture, but that is just in memory of anybody that's lost anybody. But on the bench that my family buys, if we could do a plaque, saying that this bench is here in honor of Zach Rouse. So like I said, you had said that you guys have talked about leveling the land. We were at Mont Park 3 times this week, and it's not terribly unlevel, but
Chuck did volunteer to do any groundwork he needed.
that's very kind, and I can't keep anything alive, so I'll buy some shrubs, but somebody else might wanna plant them, because I'll kill them when they get the ground.
I think we can partner with master gardeners and they'll help us maintain the shrubs and things like that. If
Okay.
we want to plant in there, because they're always looking for other things that they can help us with in Mont Park.
Well, I thought it would be nice if, I could do like some community posts if you wanted to paint rocks and like drop them off on this day, and then let my kids have a party and have their friends over and paint rocks and things, and just, one weekend, just let my boys and whoever wants to come, just do a little dedication, for their daddy, because that was their favorite place to go. So anyway, I understand that this could open a can of worms, like if you let one person do this in town, like then does everybody want to honor that person in town? So I'm not gonna be offended if you tell me that this is a horrible idea and that you just can't agree to it. Obviously it's personal for me, but I know that you guys have to make decisions that are best for everybody in the
And
community.
just an FYI for council, we have had other donations in the parks, usually it's a tree or something like that do have signage on them currently, in memory of. So it's not the first time we've had this type of request.
And my idea was a bench because we go so often and there are no benches. So
Well,
I was like, let's kill two birds with one stone.
Chris, you want to?
But anyway, so that was my idea. Thank you guys, and
You want to discuss what?
things are beautiful.
Thank you.
you.
Is the purpose of the rocks so that everyone who has lost one can add a rock eventually? Is that the purpose of it?
I don't think there's really a purpose of the rocks, except that, like, I think it's a thing where people are like leaving them around for people to find them, and they say positive things. So I think the only purpose of the rock was as a beautification thing.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's no meaning in that for me. So if you guys just wanted to do the bench and scratch the
If
rest,
somebody
like,
wanted
I will-
to rock in memory, there wouldn't be any reason.
no, they could leave a rock in memory, or, like,
Decorate one.
decorate
Yes.
one, take one, whatever. So the bench is just how this idea started, and I just wanted to do it at Mock Park because of, like, my husband even through chemo took my son there 3 days a week. And so, and I just thought the telephone was pretty cool, especially since we have the old payphone downtown, like a little play on that. And so the walkway with the rock stones, if we need to X that, that's fine. It would just be a pretty thing.
No, I just thought that that's what my thought was that that's what you started with, your son putting a rock down there for daddy, and then everyone else had lost one. They do the same and that becomes the rock garden
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, no, it started with me wanting to put a bench somewhere, and I was thinking Mock Park, and I mean, benches are kind of boring, and then my son was like, these rocks are really pretty, can we put some at Mock Park with daddy's name on them? And I was like, maybe we can incorporate it and just like make it like a pretty little walkway that the kids see a rock that has Pac-Man or Spider-Man painted on it, and it's like a treasure hunt, or somebody leaves one with their loved one's initial, you know, whatever, as long as like we don't have people drawing inappropriate things on them. And I will say, we were at Mount Park this weekend, I don't know if it's for cleanup because they probably don't get up on the playground. But next time I go, I'm gonna take a magic eraser because there are some male body parts. So Sharpie, around the slides.
No, thank you for.
No.
So, I forgot about this just now, but my 3-year-old was like, "Look, Mommy, there's people here." And I was like, "I'm glad you don't know that." Yeah.
So what, at the Parks and Rec, meeting, we all agreed upon this, like pretty much unanimously, and, what we decided was that we would do all the landscaping that need to be done, as long as you just provided the bench. And so we would cover all that and take care of all that, and then all you had to do is provide the bench, and we would make it like you wanted. And,
Now we work with you.
And
with
Chuck will work with you.
Design, what you want to put in there, and then that way we can do the park as a service for the citizens. And then we'll open up a can of worms where everybody wants something done somewhere else, because the like we did the city.
Okay.
And then you donate the bench, as we say, like, special place. Okay.
and like that way you two can work together and get like, design like you like it, and you can get everything laid out. That way all you gotta do is put a bench there, and your phone, I guess.
Thank you.
Chuck, one thing, if you don't mind, think about it in the back of your mind, Laura, first of all, thank
That's something we're
you, and on behalf of Main Street for growth.
She wanted those.
But we always need benches, and there's a lot more opportunity for other benches in Mock Park, and all of that. It would be an interesting idea to come up with somewhat of a cadence of what that standard bench is, what that signage is, because if someone else wanted to bless the park or the city with a bench, I think having something that is available, maybe Chris through the park, maybe it's at not Mock Park, but at Muddy Fork Park or whatever else, a program where they can actually sponsor a bench with a plaque on it. And it may just be the start of.
You see the state parks all the time. That's
Right,
why-
yeah. But it would provide to have a program would provide a consistency in
Yeah,
that.
I agree. And even if somebody wanted to add another one at Mock Park, because there's plenty of room that they like, because I assume that they would need to be like.
Coordinate with her to make sure she picked up something that's similar to what we already have in all of our parks.
Exactly.
Because we try to get recyclable materials when we order those, and so that we're doing on the front also. Help the environment, we don't like buying steel and concrete, we usually buy something that's been recycled.
I want to steal bench for all that's not.
Not a problem, save you landscape.
I love it. We'll get together. Thank you.
All right, so another, some other stuff, like some projects that we, know that are finished, that Chuck and his team finished were the handicap swing at Muddy Fork Park, benches over Muddy Fork Park,
Handicap accessible picnic tables,
tree table.
a lot of concrete added to it for accessibility of boards, playground
Right.
equipment for handicap.
Tennis court,
It really looks good.
does look good over there.
It does.
Tennis courts, bleachers have been placed, bathroom is in place, how's that?
The bathroom's in place, they'll probably have all the plumbing hooked up and finished by the end of this week, it'll be operational.
Awesome.
With a new water fountain as well.
You want it, all right.
It's all new concrete, ADA ramp, and, new handicap park.
We looked at costs of pickleball courts, we analyzed that stuff, I know we had, Chuck gave us a number of 2 slabs, have been about $43,000, next coding, $13,800, so that's just a thing of future. project we're looking into.
I've also advertised a bid for that,
Oh,
to see
hey,
if I can get a cheaper concrete bid.
okay,
Because to be honest with you, the bid I got was $9.50 a square foot, which is about 35% more than anybody else's bid charge in the last year.
oh,
And so I don't think the concrete has went up that high. Me and Larry talked about it had to be just labor. So I advertised it statewide
okay.
to see if anybody was interested in bidding on just water concrete slabs for reports.
Another thing we discussed is, there's some vandalism, of course, there always is, Muddy Fork, vandalism, maybe looking at possible cameras over there, some sort
Some new
somehow.
signage.
New signage, for Muddy Fork, a direction like from the neighborhood to Muddy Fork Park. That's just, I think that's just something we can still have a sign, that's no big deal there. One of the biggest concerns is, we discussed was also the Washington County United Soccer League. There's been numerous complaints on the soccer league. I know it has nothing to do with us, but, we do provide the fields for that league. And, I guess they're not being maintained not from us, but from the soccer standpoint, from them or their equipment. What I've heard is they're really looking for, really wanting the city to try to absorb this league. That this is just something, we're just in talks with this right now. Just throwing ideas, trying to find property. We're not gonna take on something we can't handle because we don't have the property either. So there's no way we can take on a soccer league if we don't have a place to put a soccer league. So we kind of put that on the back burner for right now. We're talking, we're looking. Mayor maybe threw out maybe a meeting with the contractor, possibly.
Chuck had one lined up and it didn't.
It was supposed to be sometime this week, and, we could see it come back to the table.
Okay.
And so we'll visit that again.
I still think, just so it's on the record, that taking over a soccer league, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not speaking, but that's a huge undertaking. And so, theoretically, even our meeting with the developer is to hopefully get either land very cheap or get some donated land that can be used for soccer fields. But I'd still think our first priority would be, even if we had the fields, is just to set it up, but have United Soccer still run it.
Right. Yeah, and I think we kind of come to agreement on that when we talk about, if we can just find somebody, get some property for them, I think that's the biggest concern to them, they don't have a place to do it at besides in Farmington. And it's Washington United Soccer League is actually a Prairie Grove based soccer league.
Yeah, they did start playing a lot of games in Prairie Grove this year because of I guess the construction that they're doing over at Farmington.
Right, they tore up all the fields, so.
Man, the Saturdays I've been there, I'd hate to live in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and so that's another thing, is there's so much traffic in this little neighborhood, in this little park, and there's probably no parking for all the people who want to be over there.
Every street was full with 3 blocks.
For cars, yeah, and so that's a big concern there of this. And so right now, the hunt for property for soccer fields, baseball fields, softball fields is the biggest concern right now. And that's what we're trying to accomplish right now, is trying to find the property. Because without the property, we can't do anything else right now. So that's our first step, is finding property. And thing is, like, we can't go out there and just buy property. We can't afford to go out there and just buy acres and acres of land to put fields. So this has to be, it's gonna have to be like a donated or a very cheap.
The thing about the land that we can acquire, it's gonna be floodplain, and it's gonna be unbuilt.
Right.
So best case scenario, we could be 3 to 5 years from being able to have a facility that we can use. It's gonna take a lot of field, it's gonna take a lot of dirt work, and it's gonna take a long time. And so, like I said, the biggest thing right now is trying to get a hold of it. Then anything that we can afford, or anything that we can get, it's gonna require a lot of time, a lot of work to get that up before we can. But land is $40,000 an acre.
Right.
And we're talking about 12 to 15 acres.
So this is a big undertaking for the city, so it's not something we take lightly, looking for land or at land. But it is a process that we're looking at. It is a future that we can see. It's just not something we can grasp right now.
It may be something we address in future development.
Right.
Let's look at the more, proactive above the parkland mitigation.
Right. And you saw that in the last plat, there's a soccer field on that phase two. I don't know how big it was or whatever it was, but that's a start. You know, that's one more field that we don't have. I don't know how long ago that, that's
We've
2
got
or
a
3 years
final
away.
plat that comes before the planning commission next month,
Okay.
and they're the first ones under the new fees. And, check that they're gonna have to cut $29,000 just for that one plat.
Oh, okay.
So that should start accumulating pretty good.
Good, good.
Where's they playing soccer right now? Is it the library and on?
Mighty Fork Park, and they can play 3 or 4 games at a time, Mighty Fork, because these are smaller fields than, you know, like the high school field. But they play 3 to 4 games at a time. Mighty Fork, the biggest problem is when you get that many parents, kids, and grandparents, that parking lot will hold maybe a third of the traffic, so the rest spans out through the subdivision. You can't hardly drive through there.
Well, that's, the driveway in is,
Yeah, the driveway becomes one lane only because they park on both sides of it, so you can't even get 2 lanes.
And again, comes a safety hazard.
Yeah.
Some tickets or any dangerous service, just don't let
It's
it
crazy.
go.
But
that's probably gonna come
Lincoln,
off, but we should look at our church. There's ample parking at ample fields.
I looked over there, I ran it over there, and
Yeah, well, I mean,
it needs to be.
we don't play that level for 6
Yeah, I
year
know.
old.
yeah, the field, the other 2 fields they play at, in Farmington, they play behind the Baptist church, that's not open. And then in Lincoln, they play at the high school. They've got fields on the football field as well as fields behind the high school.
So we don't play with the library anymore or like the.
That's just practice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've been there, so.
And if you have 75 kids that are playing 2 or 3 games at the same time, then you have 75 more families that are coming in 20 minutes before the next game starts,
Mhm.
and all the parking lots already full.
I think it's problem, I think the library, no restaurants either.
Right.
Yeah.
We fix that for
We were getting some
$10,000, huh?
complaints because of that.
Because wherever, like, whenever we used to run a program, where we had work.
What's first?
Anyway, so that's another, that's a talk.
Yeah.
Megan, is there anything I missed? Also, last thing, tennis, no, I did that one. Mont Park Pavilion, I think is on hold for right now, if I'm right.
Yeah, we're still looking at, our bid came in 50,000, something 55. We were thinking maybe 25, so it was double what we thought. And so we're looking at our crews actually doing some of the work, that way we can keep it down to a respectful 20,000 and just open up what is already basically the roll up, someone help me, I lost it. The roll-up doors, the overhead doors, I just gut out that so you can see straight through my park. So the concept's the same, just won't be as big. But in essence, if we do the work, we can keep our costs 50 to maybe even, I'll probably be pushing it to say 60%
We
cheaper.
can do the work, and the biggest thing is the trim. You know,
Right.
once you get it gutted and get it cleaned out, you can go on labor. Then when you start finding materials that make it look nice, it's something we can be proud of, that's what it's gonna be. I think me and Larry's got some pretty good ideas on what we can do, but realistically, we're still looking at $20,000. Just the materials.
That ain't-
Utilizing
that ain't
labor.
56,
Yeah, it will need new siding, the siding is only $3,000.
And see, we want to do the siding where everything matches on the existing building and.
So just to update everyone, Parks and Rec, we line item $60,000 to spend this year when it came to Parks and Rec. Well, if you just look, and we were hoping for 3 pickleball courts. We looking at almost $100,000 there, so that blew that one out the way. And we was thinking pickleball, possibly 1 court, 2 courts, or the pavilion. Well, then the pavilion comes in at almost 60,000. That's the whole budget. So then we went back to the 2 pickleball courts. Well, that ends up being over 60,000, but right around 60,000 for those 2. So we just kind of flipping coins on both sides to just try to figure out what's going on. We're waiting to hear about the fields on the donation for the soccer fields, just in case we would have to pull some money into that one as well. So we still have the money sitting there. We're still trying to figure out what direction we should go into. And it's just like we hear everything comes in higher than we thought.
Be sure you make them aware that the fees have gone up.
Yes.
So as they get into those latter phases, costs a lot more money if they decide to pay.
But, one of the things like the mayor talked about, is we're gonna utilize the $60,000 for land acquisition if we do. Like Grace be able to get as much land as we want, then he only asks for that amount. And he's gonna put all of our other projects the same for the summer, completely on hold for next year. So we don't want to invest $30,000 or $40,000 on capital improvements that we think we can get done. If this opportunity to get this land comes up for $70,000.
So last, thing I wanna go, just, I've got just getting the top of my head is, how's the, pool coming along?
It is doing really well. We got the new water slide pumps put in, a little over a week ago. They're operational. The guys have been doing walkthroughs and tried out all equipment, and things going good. We'll have to get to the tile setter and one of the tiles around the waiting pool on the top. So, Howard Mason or a tile layer to come in and get the tabs.
That's not the new stuff, right? That's just.
No.
That's all
On
I,
the plunge pool,
No, it's on the waiting pool.
we've always had problems. I've had the tiles that tell me this will not come off. And it very well, it's-
Assuming we got staff and all that ready to go for the pool.
They did interviews over the weekend. We're ready to Saturday. Last 2 years, I've not been a part of the interview process, which doesn't hurt my feelings. You know, you start having 75 kids coming through every 5 or 6 minutes. A different person comes through. So, a lot of interest. A lot more than.
You begin on the baseball covering, the protective covering.
Budget oriented.
I don't remember, they were very expensive, but I thought we found a cheap alternative, or did we not?
We looked at making permanent roofing because it's cheaper. Then we talked about maybe just a shade structure,
Mhm.
a sail. But those poles are quite expensive to bleach you. And they have to be sunk so deep in the ground.
What, do you remember the cost?
Not so much with the poles because we didn't ever determine on the heights that we wanted to go up because we want to be able to be beyond the reach of people standing on the top of the bleachers to keep them from falling down because they're running put up their tension. And, we talked about doing an experiment up at, Muddy Ford. Larry bought us a sail. And so we're gonna start up there, maybe put something over a picnic table and see how well it handles it. Or we're gonna go with 6x6 posts that you can actually buy from the lumber store, or something like that. And then the guys even mentioned going with the 6x6 steel post. Okay. That way the different floor.
Can I say that question? I don't obviously know anything about building, so could you not attach, netting to the top of each of the fences and grate across?
We talked about doing that and coming off the post,
Right,
but the posts are not rated for the wind shear of the sail. They're rated.
You can probably put a net, something that
that's what I'm
wind can
saying,
pass
that
through.
then, that would catch the bombs.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be shade.
That's what
But I'm more
Farmington,
worried about safety than shade.
that's what
honestly.
Farmington used to have over it.
Yeah, that's what I know it's,
Lincoln used to have that.
but we have the netting, right? Or we have. So I thought we talked about several years ago, we had some sort of something.
It was, I think is what she's referencing, I think is what you were just saying, that you had something that you were gonna bring in that we were gonna try out.
Well, Lincoln has, it's kind of like a fish net,
Mhm.
but it's just catch balls only, it doesn't do anything for the shade.
Yeah, we could do something.
And it doesn't catch any wind shear because wind passes through.
Mr. Powell, will you just kind of keep that in your notes for Park and Rec Committee? As we're doing our quarterly meetings, it can be something that we can continue to talk about. Bree, when you originally started asking us for it, are you just talking about the 3 baseball fields at Reef Park?
Yeah, I mean,
Honest
I
high
was simply
school.
asking for safety, because I personally got hit by a ball in the basketball field with my daughter sitting next to me. And if you go to any other complex, which we have a nice complex, but it clearly needs a
Some updates.
facelift of some sort. But I would much prefer the safety netting over the
Over
shade.
shade.
Because I mean, those kids run around wild out there anyways, and a fly ball from the high school is really dangerous. So I just would hate for something to happen to a kid and that be a fix that we put off to do something.
can we look into some of that netting? I mean, is that,
Yeah,
that's expensive? I mean, if we can look at some of that, just maybe try something, just try one of them, see if it works or not. I mean, that'd be- I mean, I
That's
would-
short-term fix,
Short-term
for, to
fix,
get us through
yeah.
until we can afford it one day.
Exactly.
I mean, 5 years.
That's all I got. Parks and Rec, sorry, it took so long.
Thank you, sir. Police Department, Doug Stumble.
First chief,
Workman.
Back in,
Yeah.
busy. Not the, I thought I sent them out 2 weeks ago, apparently I didn't. The number today. Our newest graduate is out. Felkins, he has started at FTO, so seems to be doing well, so that'll be about 12 weeks in the program. Get everybody hired, get everybody trained and staying busy. The new, apart from the new patrol unit out front, of course, we went back to different colors, because we always had the silver vehicles, and now you can't get the silver for Chrysler. They've gone to what's called Prairie gray, which is different. And those are always special order colors. So in the world of vehicles, ever since COVID, everything's just crazy, so you can't get brake pads for vehicles. So well, we found out the dealerships always get excess in white vehicles and black vehicles. There's not gonna be no change in those, so I think that's why we decided to go with the black vehicle. They had those, of course, the one that got destroyed in an accident. So the new decals are on, they did a great job. It's kind of an experience. We've been emailing back and forth trying to create a design. I think they did really well, did good. I think they look great, so other than that, everything's doing good.
Chief, are we fully staffed now?
Yes.
And- Go ahead, man.
Has your bid come back yet?
No,
Your bid?
we haven't went to bid yet.
First, I believe, is when that's set.
Yes,
So,
20.
Set to be out.
No, he said he's gonna set the advertise at 21st.
Yes, yeah, that's when it goes out.
Usually we have it set for a couple of weeks, so.
So we're still probably a month away from knowing about the bid. Hey, I don't know if we're gonna have a beautiful police expansion, but look at that lobby coming together. We're gonna have a nice shiny new lobby, if nothing else.
We are
If that-
fully staffed, but, you know, in the police world, that's hard to do any police department, so hopefully we'll stay staffed.
We all, just for sake of argument, because I know even with buying the parking lot, we talked about the police department expansion. Me and Chief actually talked today about already prepping to move his police over to City Hall. And then we plan on, should say, the city itself, our employees plan on gutting that whole building to save even more money. So that way, no one has to come in and tear down walls and remove carpet. Like, we'll do all of that. That way they walk into a gutted building, similar to how we've just kind of been piecing the lobby together without it having to be part of that bid to try to keep our numbers down and keep it as respectful as we can for our citizens and our taxpayers.
I was gonna comment, the Acme Tile Company did a good job on that floor. They sure did.
Mayor, this may be an unknown at this point, but with the expansion potential, Chief, does your residency change as far as where your office is at the end of the day? And if so, do we have any plans for the current facility where Chief and O'Brien?
Can I answer that, Chief? So yes, if the expansion happens, then Chief and Captain will move over here. As far as the plans for that, there's nothing in concrete. We've talked about moving basically the planning, zoning, code enforcement into that. We've talked about the idea of the actual, like city clerk would go in there. We've thrown some things around. We've even, and well, I probably shouldn't even say this. It's a 1% on, should we even sell it? But then we're trying to acquire as much land as we can. So selling it is kind of but I mean, that's even been thrown on the back burner of, is it an asset to use or is it an asset to sell? But there's no concrete plans.
To be determined.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and real quick since we're talking facilities and police also, I know that at the last municipal league, we learned a lot about signage and, public filming and all that. Are we still making progress on particular areas of signage at that point?
So in essence, we could make it really, really easy, and Chuck was just gonna order some signs and we were gonna say, don't go this way and don't go that way. And then when we were looking at bringing the police over there, the truth is budget became an issue there because we were actually gonna we're gonna switch our room kind of like this, where we're gonna bring Melissa towards the lobby, that way water department and there was gonna be some movements that was gonna cost us some money. And then we realized it was gonna cost us too much money. But in that, it was gonna change the way we were gonna approach where someone can come in as far as public was. And so it changed everything again. So now it's just all the signs and put it up.
Yeah,
Because
temporary and-
City Hall's not changing.
Yeah.
Long range plan and Bree Greg?
Yep, we already talked about, Copper Hill, but on the agenda, we also had, a request for conditional use in the R3 zone requested by Lots 102 Holding LLC, seller to Fellowship Bible Church of Northwest Arkansas, for land located on Heritage Parkway, parcels, which would probably do anything
Yeah,
on that.
I apologize for turning my computer off. I shouldn't have left it up.
That's okay. This was, I want to say maybe initially Silva's, it was sold to Tom Sims, who we approved to put townhomes on, what was it?
3 or 4 years ago.
Several years ago. When we approved that for him, we required that the highway frontage remain commercial. So that was the big topic with, allowing Fellowship Bible Church to purchase this land. We would be losing, the commercial frontage space on Heritage Parkway. There's actually 2 entrances, if y'all have seen the picture. The one that would be closest to Prairie Grove would be their main entrance, is what they discussed. It would lead kind of towards the back a little bit, and they would have a, very large church that would seat 400 to 600. It's roughly
60,000 square foot.
60,000 square foot, church nestled back there. So it wouldn't necessarily be sitting right on the road. But what we essentially, approved is that that left entrance would be their main entrance. And they would not have to leave it commercial. And then the right entrance, which is a couple parcels down, there's at least one home.
I think there's 2 parcels in between their next parcel.
Okay, so it kind of splits and goes to the back. We asked them to keep that commercial to the left side of the entryway. They've got to have 2 entrances.
So their entrance will be down the property line, leaving the rest of the property for some type of commercial.
Yes.
Enter.
Towards the, again, the highway frontage. And we warned them, so that would be the normal entrance that they. What's in here? The Engineering Institute.
Urban Cable Engineering Institute, the car lot that's out on the highway.
Country Drive.
Country Drive.
I think you're going to.
After you go past the rustic rooster, it would be on the same side.
Okay.
Hey Bree, I don't know if this would be applicable or not, but just a plant to see, because we've learned a lot about liquor sales, over the last few years. You know, Larry, keep me honest, if there's a church facility, then is it 300 feet from that? There would, since that is in the wet area of Prairie Grove, you're also restricting any type of alcohol sales within 300 feet of that facility.
Right. They probably, I'd be shocked if they sold it to someone who wanted to sell that, but that's a good, I mean, that is a good point.
Larry, is it 300 feet door to door or property to property?
I don't remember honestly. I know just there's 300 foot in there, but I don't know.
I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
I don't know. Last time I checked the statute, and it's been several years ago.
Yeah, I think they changed that now, because it used to be schools and churches, that's all gone away now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something we need to research.
Yeah.
The last thing we kind of mentioned to them is they're considering buying the 2 parcels. They haven't talked to the owners yet, but that's definitely something they were thinking about. We warned them that that would be more highway frontage, that we would want to remain commercial, or we have a harder time getting more highway frontage. But I think that's about it.
But this is the church with multiple campuses. This will be campus number 4.
They have one behind Sam's Club in Fayetteville, one up in Lowell,
One in Memphis.
and one in Philadelphia. Yeah, so it's a large church. They're big churches, they're pretty churches. It's not gonna be an eyesore based off their other 3. Now we just gotta figure out how to get them to turn right into Prairie Grove, maybe no left turn, like Chick-fil-A. Yeah, no left turn for 2 miles.
Right.
But I think that's about what we covered. I'm done.
2 things I've got to cover real quick. I sent you all an email today regarding, storage buildings and residential properties, and we had a request when somebody who wanted to bring in one of these steel metal pods into their backyard. Our current accessory structure ordinance refers to buildings, but it doesn't specifically say that you can't have a steel storage pod. In the commercial accessory structure section of the ordinance, separate the ordinance, but also covers accessory structures for commercial, it specifically says you cannot have steel storage pods unless they're temporary. So my question is, with the new code that we're gonna adopt next month, is that something you would like me to specifically address in the code?
Yes. Yeah,
Definitely.
I do think we have to consider grandfathered for existing, but yes.
That would be non-conforming, just like any other use that doesn't, yeah. I'll go ahead and write some language, and I'll send that language out to you when I get it addressed, but the plan right now, part two of my business is I think Parker has finally blessed the development ordinance, and we'd like to bring that to you as soon as possible. We have some engineers that are calling us regularly, because we've been telling them for months that it's coming next month, it's coming next month. And I think we need to get this thing on the table as quick as possible. I would like to propose the first full week of May, Monday. I don't know what that is.
May 6th.
May 6th, if everybody would be available for a public hearing. And Parker's not here to ask this question. I don't know if we can have a public hearing and then vote on it afterwards, or public hearing has to be on its own. I think we can have a public hearing and then it can go to y'all after. But there would be a public hearing on the new zoning maps. There would be a public hearing on the new development code at the same time.
Larry, would the new development codes have anything to do with the requirements for the developers of the automatic meter components?
The what?
The automatic meter or RF meters?
If that's something that you want, it would be part of what is in the ordinance now under the water, regulations and requirements. So that section would need to be modified, but it can be modified anytime. For that matter.
Well, you know, I want that.
We had, Chuck had an engineer revise those last year. And so we've got all new water regulations. It's not in there currently, but that's the section that would need to be added.
Gotcha.
So you want to confirm May 6th? We know May 6th,
Everybody good with my
6:30 here. All right, 6:30, May 6th.
Just real quick, JC just sent me, on the alcohol beverage,
Mhm.
the 1,000
From churches?
from, property line. The permit can be issued. There's a
Still
1,000.
in there?
Yeah. The 1,000 people.
Wonder if that changed.
I mean, it used to be smaller, I know that.
I know it used to be, I think.
Cause I've known there's been a few permits issued that I was like, don't forget Walmart #1 in Fort Smith, there's a school right behind it. And they didn't ever get a beverage permit, but then last year they got one. And so I guess that 1,000 feet got them into where they could get one, it was 1,000 feet. That's it, but
The liquor store that's out there just has, a big Aaron Park.
yeah,
They
yeah.
did a lot split so that that property would be just that, because the
Yeah.
property they had was within that 1,000. So they did a lot split and they put the liquor store on the second lot.
Yeah.
So that they.
Yeah, because I knew something changed in it where these businesses for whatever could never get, permits, were all of a sudden getting permits. I was like, well, something's gotta give. So it's changed to 1,000 feet, what it is. That's property line, not the word.
So wouldn't that restrict it and make it more difficult? Am I missing what
Yes.
you're saying?
You think you make much more, but somehow they're, I don't know how they got them. I mean,
Yeah, because I remember when we researched it for Gabby's, because they were wanting to do a private club license, they couldn't even do that because of the distance to the church across the street.
Right.
And it's 300 feet, what I remember.
Yeah. So they made it harder, but somehow the permits are getting issued. I don't know, but there must be a loophole somewhere in there.
Senior citizens, Paula Ditmos.
So renovations are really going well. They've got the whole front end, fixed to expand. And they're supposed to stripe the parking lot this week. And I asked Lance if they were gonna fix the bathrooms, and they have applied for, Walton Foundation money. Trying to do that with. And they should know maybe this week if they get it.
Control of that.
They need to be remodeled.
I built those brand new in 1995.
I don't know why I think we need to be remodeled then. I have no idea.
Thank you, Paula. Library, Tony Cunningham.
We need the toss.
You
We.
ready?
I have no report.
Mayor, if I can circle back to parking in a minute.
Yeah.
$200 a piece for the nets, they're 20 by 30. So I think we're gonna need at least 3 for each field. And that totals everything, somewhere around 750 to 800 bucks.
Sounds like worth every penny.
Okay, he agrees with it.
And I'm trying to get as much coverage as I can. Until we cover the people.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not about me.
Look up, pay attention.
Tell my 4-year-old.
When they yell heads up, that means look.
No one said heads up. No one said a word.
The reality is you can't cover everything.
Right.
You can at least cover.
But from the,
Well, you want a chance to get hit again or.
It's like lightning.
but my daughter has.
Chance.
You're right, I'll just do this through the next.
But,
That's my only announcement on that.
but, 20 by 50, 20 by 30, mix one that. Without because more than anything, so I think realistically, I think.
It's really the high schoolers that could hit it hard enough. So it really, I mean, priority, I guess, would be the gymnastics.
The only announcement, we started saying it earlier, but May 6th, 6:30 here for public hearing, and then we'll confirm whether or not, once Parker, once he deals with his emergency, and over the next few days, whether to be a public hearing and a special council meeting where we'd vote after, if it'll just be a public hearing. You have any other announcements?
Mr. Mayor, real quick, farmer's market starts the 27th. The Hall family will be doing the music that day. Also keep in mind the museum, the Heritage Museum is open at the same time as the farmer's market. If you haven't been there or haven't been there in a while, I encourage you to go check out the museum.
Anything else? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn, Mr. Cunningham.
I'd like to make a motion and we adjourn.
So moved.
I'll do it.